It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well if you'd like to check us out there at the Team 980. If you're listening on your drive home, want to keep watching when you get home, you can use that free Odyssey app or go to your smart TV and hit the Team 980. And as long as you're subscribed, it should be one of the first things that pops up for you on that YouTube app. There on that YouTube app, you can also find reporting from WUSA 9 and Eric Flack. Lots of different things he reports on. But one of the biggest stories that he has been following as closely as anybody is the pursuit of RFK Stadium and the general pursuit of a new stadium by the Washington Commanders. And since there is a new development on that, it is our pleasure to welcome WUSA 9 Chief Investigative Reporter Eric Flack to the show. Flack, what's up, dude? Thanks for coming on.
What's up, Hoffman? Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So the thing that you have reported on here, and we'll get into the details in a second, is that the district has hired this firm, ASM Global, to explore whatever it is that they're trying to explore. You'll be able to fill us in the moment. Eric, this is not the most important part of the story, but I just got to say, this is an LA-based firm. We are Washington, D.C. We are the home of more consulting firms than any other city probably in the world. We got your Booz Allens. We got your KPMGs. We got your Deloittes. Why are they going to an LA-based firm? We're literally the butt of every consulting firm, consultant joke that ever has been written. Other places don't even know consultant jokes exist. Why are they hiring a firm from LA? Why are tax scholars doing there? Come on.
If you were frustrated before, just wait till you hear this. The city went out of its way not to hire local or to take bids on this contract. They did what's called, the layman's term is a no-bid procurement, no-bid contract. Usually in government, you have to say, okay, we're going to put out a call for a job, a project, in this case a study. We're going to take a whole bunch of bids. We're going to do the one that's most economically responsible while also getting the most bang for our buck. They did not do that in this case. In this case, they had to actually justify the fact that they went straight to this firm in LA, which specializes in this sort of thing. The fact that they specialize in this sort of thing was part of the rationale and reasoning that the city used to go straight to this LA firm and go around the traditional process. They also, and we'll get into this, said that there was a time crunch because Congress is about to approve the legislation that's going to return the RFK land to the city long term. We know that they're not about to do that, and we don't know if are going to reasons to fast track this contract, go straight to this company that has done 7 of these football stadiums and contract exclusively with them more than $500,000 in taxpayer money to do the second sports related study that has to do with bringing the Commanders back to the RFK site, the second one of these in a year. So we're now close to $1 million total on these sorts of studies.
Wow. That was a question I was asking as a joke, but there's actual substance there.
Yes, there is.
Well, there's that. Get your jokes off social media. There's your substance. Okay, so what is it that they're actually trying to find, and why is it that they needed a second study after there was a similar study done within the last 12 months as well to investigate what is possible at the RFK site?
Somebody with DC government told me this $100,000 was really more big picture about sports, professional sports specifically, and its economic impact on DC. Spoiler alert, that study said pro sports brings a lot of money into Washington, D.C., and is a financial win for us. There was a piece of that study that related to the big question, which is how the city would pay for or help pay for a new football stadium on the RFK site if it becomes a possibility to lure the Commanders back to D.C. The city refused open records requests to release that piece of it because they said it was trade secrets. In the mayor's words, she doesn't want to show our competitors, meaning Maryland or Virginia, her hand. This study, I've been told, is strictly focused on nothing but RFK. It's strictly focused on get the commanders back to RFK. How do they lure them back to RFK? How do they build on the RFK site logistically? How big is the stadium going to be? And then most importantly, how does the city, who is projected to be $1.7 billion in debt by 2030, how does the city finance or help finance a stadium at RFK to become partners with the Washington Commanders so they don't build in Maryland or they don't go to Virginia?
Eric Flack, Chief Investigative Reporter, WUSA 9, with us here on The Hoffman Show as we continue to learn more about the Commanders' pursuit of RFK and DC's pursuit of the Commanders. So if, in Congress, that's the holdup currently. If they can clear those hurdles, and we can talk about those hurdles in a second, what then would be the process of, presumably, this is what this study is trying to figure out, is what should we actually do with that land? What are the options on the table, and who are some of the key players that would have to ultimately approve, whether it's a stadium or anything else that gets to decide what goes on that RFK site if they can get it out of Congress in the first place?
My belief is that if they get the land back through Congress, that's the biggest hurdle. They will figure out, in my opinion, a way to finance this deal. And if they figure out a way to finance this deal, because Josh Harris wants to be at RFK, Mayor Bowser, who is now, really the most powerful politician in Washington, D.C., on the local level, wants the team back. If we get past the hurdle of Congress actually passing this bill, which is not guaranteed, then I think it picks up so much momentum that even opponents Fallon on the D.C. Council. I love this idea on the D.C. Council. That eventually it becomes so much of a public win, meaning the public wants this, the top elected official wants this, the team wants this, that certain players will not be able to stand in the way. D.C. Council, I don't believe, will be able to stop this if it becomes an option, which it's not. So, Charles Allen does not want, is D.C. council member, does not want a stadium on that land. There are voices like his who say we lack affordable housing in Washington, D.C. This is the last undeveloped piece of land in Washington, D.C. You should not put a football stadium on it. They continue to say a football stadium that's only going to be used 8 times a year, 10 times a year. But, that's not the situation anymore, especially if you put a dome on it and do all the things that I certainly believe the Commanders are going to do wherever they ultimately build this stadium. So, there will be opponents on the D.C. Council, but if it gets through Congress, then I think the momentum really, really picks up. And even though it doesn't seem like they have the money, they've never explained how they're going to pay for it, meaning D.C. government. I think ultimately they figure out a way, and looping back to the news of the day, I think that, spending this money with this firm out in L.A. that does specialize in this, that characterizes itself as the world's industry leader in just this sort of thing, they get a roadmap to get this thing done if they get the land back.
Eric Flack, WUSA 9 investigative reporter, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Do we have any idea, Eric, what is in this report, whether because you've been able to see parts of it or we're aware of this firm and the other stadiums that they've built and how they've pursued those pathways? And if we don't, how long until you think we figure it out or we find out?
Good question. The contract was actually signed in June, just came to light here in the last 24 hours. I've asked for clarification from the city on that. The Department of Planning and Economic Development, which is the division within DC government which commissioned this study, is not commenting. The commanders, by the way, are not commenting. The term of the contract is the last day of September, so the last day of next month. So, in my reading of the contract, that's actually in line with the timeline that would have to be, because presumably the city is saying we need to have all our ducks in a row ready to go the second Congress gives us the land, long term, which is, if it happens, it will happen late in the season, November, December, probably right before Congress adjourns. And they want to have their ducks ready to go. What's going to be in it? I don't know. I know that they're going to, I think the commanders, again, this is independent of the commanders. So this firm may have ideas about how you build it on RFK and this, that, and the other, and this is how big it should be. And those are all included in the study. I have good reason to believe the commanders already know exactly what the state at this point. It's just figuring out where. So I think that part is not as important, but it will be in the study. What's important is how you're going to pay for it. And they're going to give experience with other cities that they have helped do this and finance this on. I don't know that they worked on Tennessee. I don't know that they worked on Jacksonville. I don't know that they worked on Chicago. I don't know that they worked on Buffalo. Other cities that are currently thinking about or building or renovating stadiums. But they will say, we worked with this city. We worked with that city, and this is how they did it. And this is how they did it. And you, under your financial auspices, Washington, D.C., can do it this way. We recommend that this is the best way to try and help kick in or pay for this stadium to lure Washington, the commanders back to D.C. And there's also aspects of the contract that deal with, how do you handle the public relations? How do you get the public on your side? So it's kind of a one-stop shop, if you will, for D.C. government creating a playbook to get the commanders back.
And it all costs just easy, cool $500,000. Great, cool, love it.
565, actually, if you're counting.
But who's counting? You got time for two more questions, real quick?
Of course.
Okay. Two more questions for Eric Flack here, Chief Investigative Reporter from WSA 9, with us on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. And the two questions are, Eric Flack, we know that Jason Wright is no longer the president of the Commanders. We know that he was, in theory, doing some special projects. My guess was that would probably include the stadium that he was working on until he ultimately departs the team at the end of the year. But I'd also imagine that if he was absolutely crushing the stadium beat, he might still be the team president. So from the Commander side, even though this is a contract with the city of DC, who is currently working on the stadium, as far as we know, from the Commanders side of thing? And then we will close with the Congress question. But for the Commanders, with Jason Wright no longer as team president, who is currently spearheading, as far as we know, their stadium pursuit?
He's a guy named Kirtan Mehta. Really nice guy. He comes from Senate politics in Washington on Capitol Hill. He was chief of staff for a couple of big name senators. He knows the Hill very well. I fully believe that his connections on the Hill, hint, hint, RFK, were part of his resume and job qualifications and pro-con list when he was hired. he is now fully taken over that search. Used to be a great guy named Joe Maloney who was doing it. He moved on shortly after the transition, and they brought in this guy named Curtin Mehta, and he is vice president of public policy, but he is your stadium guy for the Washington Commanders. The team president actually, obviously oversees it a little bit and has input, but they have a guy. They have a guy specifically, I'm sure a high-priced guy, but they have a guy specifically dedicated to this job. And he has been on it, drinking from a fire hose, as they say, since the summer, catching up. And he's running point on all of this.
All right, and then that leaves the actual biggest question in all of this. We've buried the lead. Good job. My journalism professors are proud. I guess we didn't really, because the new news is what we talked about earlier with the consulting firm. But we all know this is all contingent on the land being released by Congress in the first place, which we won't get into the whole home rule argument today. That's a different show. However, Eric Flack, what is the holdup? Is it still Steve Daines? And is it likely that it gets unheld up in time for them to not just go, we need a freaking stadium. Sorry, D.C., we're going to Maryland or Virginia?
I'll do this as succinctly as I can. Steve Daines, senator from Montana, will release his hold on the bill as soon as the Blackfeet family or the Wetzel family from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana remove their opposition. The Washington Commanders, as a way to repair Blackie Wetzel, member of the Wetzel family, is the guy who created the logo for the formerly Washington Redskins, the Indian head, and they feel very disrespected that it is not used anymore. The Washington Commanders, as part of a way to mend fences, are going to honor the Wetzel family at the Week 2 game, the home opener against Tampa, and honor Blackie Wetzel's contributions to the franchise. The grandson who is running this opposition was more positive than he's ever been. When I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, he said, not definitely, but we're moving in the right direction for me to release my opposition. Daines from Montana says he will release his hold on the bill as soon as his constituent, Brian Wetzel family in Montana, releases their opposition. That is looking like it's trending in the right direction. Once he does that, it still has to get out of a Senate subcommittee that Daines is on and holding it up on. The problem is that there's a whole bunch of other senators that will then throw their hat into the conversation, and it won't just be Republicans. You got people like Bernie Sanders on that subcommittee who don't like helping out billionaires and have created a brand on not helping out billionaires. And so getting out of that subcommittee is in fact no guarantee. If it gets out of the subcommittee to the full Senate, again, remember, it's already passed Congress. It's already passed the House of Representatives. If it gets to the full Senate, so 2 steps to get to the full Senate, then Schumer from New York, who's the majority leader and decides what gets a hearing on the Senate floor, will have to give it a hearing on the Senate floor. Time will be running out. There are other bills that will be competing with. It could get attached. It won't get its own hearing. They don't have time. It could potentially get attached to some other legislation, as it happens in Congress, and get through at the last second. None of this is a guarantee. So I have talked to people close to the situation who want this to happen, and there's nobody assuming that D.C. is going to get control of that land in this congressional cycle by the end of the year. If that happens, Josh Harris, his ownership group, have a huge decision to make with this stadium. Do they wait another year, go back to Congress, try to get it through in a non-election year, which would be easier, thereby pushing back the entire timeline again, or do they move on with Maryland or Virginia?
Wouldn't it be cool, Eric, if there was a senator from D.C. who could argue on behalf of the district in the actual Senate? Like, what a representation What? Wouldn't that be?
But that would,
like,
that would,
couldn't that be?
That would mean like DC residents pay federal taxes. Oh wait.
I've seen my last pay stub. Sure looks like I do. Anyway, that's an argument for another time, but don't really feel like I need more time because that's the whole freaking point. One of the many points anyway. Eric, great stuff as always. Thank you kindly, sir. Really appreciate your time and your expertise and all your work on this and your continual grace in coming on this radio show to talk about it.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
That's
Talk to you later.
Eric Flack, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Is like, unless I don't know, Tim Kaine decides to be like, hey, I'm going to be a nice neighbor and I'm going to argue on behalf of D.C. as a senator from Virginia. D.C. doesn't have anybody in the room outside of their lobbyists and the people from the team and whatever trying to pull strings behind the scenes, but they don't have anybody with a vote, with skin in the game to unlock their own / our own land. It's ridiculous. Oh, it makes me so mad. And I would say the other thing too this is a political take, but it is one that is extremely relevant to this conversation when Eric talks about like the Bernie Sanders opposition, for instance. I have no problem personally with Bernie Sanders, generally speaking, making life hard on billionaires because of a lot of reasons that I won't get into because it's too complex of a take. But what I would say is that is actually not the point here. And I would hope that Bernie Sanders and the other things that he cares about in terms of people being able to rule themselves, the whole home rule theory of DC, this is not hey, are we giving money to Josh Harris to build a stadium vote that Bernie Sanders and people that are on the political polar opposite of Bernie Sanders are going to decide. What they are going to decide is, do we let D.C. decide what to do with that land? And then we, the citizens of the district, can fight amongst ourselves. And I really, really hope that people go that route and say, hey, whatever it is you want to do with this land, it's yours. You get to decide. And if you want to do something that I disagree with, well, that's politics, baby. And it's not about Bernie Sanders or any of the, Steve Daines or anybody making decisions based off their own views on what is going to happen with the land, based off anything related to the commanders or their owners. It is about releasing the land to the district so the district can decide for itself. That is the summation of that part of it. Very much appreciate Eric's expertise on the rest of it and some stuff that the district is doing to lay the plans should they actually get that opportunity.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.